On Halloween 2010, while children in costumes were knocking on doors across Ascot, Berkshire, something far darker was taking place inside a home on Millionaire's Row. 46-year-old Joanna Simpson was attacked by the man she had once trusted and loved, struck repeatedly with a claw hammer while her two young children played just 2 doors away. 5 days later, her body would be discovered buried in a pre-dug grave in Windsor Great Park. The person responsible was a British Airways captain, a pilot accustomed to holding hundreds of lives in his hands. And yet, despite the weight of evidence suggesting calculation and planning, Robert Brown would never be convicted of murder. Joanna Simpson was born in 1964 in York, Yorkshire. She was raised in a close, supportive family. Her father, Chris, ran a successful building firm, and her mother, Diana, would later speak with pride and pain about a daughter who was, in her words, someone special. When Joanna was young, the family moved to the Isle of Man, where she attended the Beast Hand School. She was remembered as a livewire, adventurous, and eager to throw herself into whatever she did. After school, Joanna went on to the University of Bath and completed a business degree. Her professional life was successful, but the role that defined her more than any other was the one she chose wholeheartedly, being a mother. Her best friend, Hetty Barkworth Nanton, described Jo as a ray of sunshine, kind, warm, fun, and above all, an incredible mother. They were soulmates in friendship, and she had a way of digging deep no matter how hard life became, always making the best of things. Joanna held strong moral values. She believed that every child deserved a safe, secure, loving home. She was the friend who remembered everyone's birthday. One person who knew her put it simply: throughout their life, Joanna had taught them a great deal about kindness. Before she met Robert Brown, she had been married once before, and that relationship ended amicably. During that period, she purchased a house in Ascot. It was a wreck when she bought it, so neglected that trees were growing through the ceiling. Joanna took on the project with characteristic energy, renovating the property herself and transforming it into a warm, beautiful home. Everything changed in November 1998 when Joanna met Robert Brown in South Africa. He was 36, she was 34. He was 2 years older than Joanna and flew long-haul routes to San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Hong Kong as a British Airways pilot. He captained Boeing 747s and carried the confidence and persuasive authority that often accompanies such a role. Their romance was described as a whirlwind. Brown moved into Joanna's Ascot home, the house she had bought with her first husband and meticulously restored on her own. On Christmas Day 1998, while piloting a plane to Hong Kong on a Christmas flight, Robert proposed. It was dramatic and grand, and Joanna said yes. They married in a small ceremony in Ascot on the 13th of February 1999. But even from the beginning, warning signs emerged. When Joanna brought Robert to the Isle of Man to meet her parents, Diana and Chris reacted immediately and negatively. They disliked him at once, describing him as rude and arrogant. He struck them as reserved in one breath and dismissive of Joanna's friends in the next. People around Joanna noticed she seemed more at ease when he wasn't present, as though his arrival changed her demeanor in subtle but telling ways. Joanna's father was so unsettled by the prospect of the marriage that he insisted on a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. It was structured to protect Joanna's assets and her trust fund. The document explicitly stated that the property known as Tun Cottage on Buckhurst Road in Ascot would remain solely in Joanna's possession. Robert was unhappy about that and felt it was unfair, but he signed. Then came the honeymoon. Joanna and Robert flew to Cape Town, which should have been a blissful beginning. Instead, Joanna called her mother from South Africa to say she thought she had made a terrible mistake. Diana was alarmed, but the marriage had barely begun, and it was not obvious what could be done. By April 1999, just 2 months after the wedding, Joanna discovered she was pregnant. She felt trapped. There was no easy exit now. In December 1999, 10 months after the wedding, their son Alex was born. 17 months later, in May 2001, their daughter Katie arrived. The family settled into their life in Ascot, a location chosen to be close to Heathrow Airport for Robert's work. Joanna adored her children. Everything she did was oriented around them. She gave up her career and became, in her own words, a totally hands-on mother. To balance parenting with income, she ran a successful 5-star bed and breakfast business at Toon Cottage. It allowed her to be present for the school runs, bedtime routines, and everyday moments that mattered. The business thrived. However, Robert had invested £200,000 into the venture, a figure that would later become a lightning rod during their divorce. The marriage itself began to break down. After returning from his long-haul flights, Robert seldom spent time with Joanna and the children. He would get into work early and leave late, consumed by career ambition. Some of Joanna's friends later described him as an absent father. Joanna bore most of the responsibilities with the children. Patterns emerged: coercive control, isolation, and intimidation. Joanna was private by nature, and she did not often speak openly about her marriage troubles, but those close to her felt the strain and sensed the danger in the undercurrent. Diana worried that Joanna would be lonely in Ascot because Robert was away so frequently. And yet Joanna pushed forward, determined to make things work, to do the best she could for her family. By January 2007, 8 years into the marriage, Joanna had reached her limit. She consulted a solicitor. The trigger had been Robert's baseless accusation that she was having an affair. It marked the true beginning of the end. In February 2007, while on a work trip in Hong Kong, Robert telephoned Joanna and told her he was having very dark thoughts about killing her and their children with an axe, and about ending his own life by crashing a plane. She hung up, distressed and shaken. She said she couldn't understand why he was doing this, then realized he might be using these terrifying statements as a lever to apply pressure, to force her to keep everything together. She did not report the call to police. A few months later came the knife incident. It was July or August 2007, and it would be the most serious attack before the murder. Joanna returned home around 10 in the evening with Alex and Katie. Robert put the children to bed. During that time, 6 years old, Katie told him about a man they had spent time with that day, a man Robert suspected was Joanna's lover. Jealousy flared into rage. He confronted Joanna in the kitchen of Toon Cottage. Without warning, he put an arm around her neck and held a knife to her chest. Joanna kept her voice calm and her words careful. She convinced him to lower the knife. Then she told him the truth. She could not stay with him. His answer was calculated. She could leave, he said, but she could not take the children. It was a threat, a line drawn to trap her. He added that if she told anyone what had happened, it would be the worst for her. Joanna understood exactly what that meant. Even after such an ordeal, she did not report it to police. The fear was overwhelming. She worried about what he would do if she involved authorities. She did, however, tell him to move out. Robert left and went to a property on North Street, Winkfield, Berkshire. He still had access to the children. The nightmare did not stop. What followed was a bitter, acrimonious divorce that lasted 3.5 years. The prenuptial agreement was at the center of it. Robert felt he had been stitched up. He believed he was being deprived of money that was rightly his. He pointed to the £200,000 he had put into Joanna's bed and breakfast business. Because of the prenup, he wasn't going to get the return he thought he deserved. During proceedings, unsettling details surfaced. The CCTV system Joanna had installed at the house had stopped working. The cables had been cut. The security lights had stopped working too, and those cables had been cut as well. As part of the divorce process, Robert provided a list of credit card transactions that showed he had purchased spy equipment. When Joanna's solicitors asked about it, he admitted buying a tracking device to put on Joanna's car. He had been monitoring her movements. For 3 years, the divorce dragged on, ostensibly over the family home, the house Joanna had found in ruins, with trees growing through the ceiling, and renovated herself 4 years before meeting Brown. She had put her heart into that place. It was hers. And yet Robert wanted a share. Joanna agreed to an undertaking to stay away from the house for 6 months, and that period was extended by another 6 months. The control, surveillance, and intimidation did not end. Hetty Bockworth Nanton would later say she had spoken to Joe an hour before she was killed, and that Joanna was really down. The pressure of the divorce, fear of Robert, uncertainty about the future. These were wearing her down. But she kept going. She always did. She was resilient and driven, and she believed that soon she would finally be free. Then, on the 20th of October 2010, something happened that had the force of a tectonic shift. Just 11 days before Joanna's death, the UK Supreme Court handed down a landmark verdict in Radmack of Fio Granino. A German heiress worth approximately £100 million won her case against her French ex-husband, who had sought to invalidate their prenuptial agreement. He had initially been awarded almost $6 million, but she appealed. On the 20th of October 2010, the Supreme Court ruled 8-1 in her favor, holding that prenuptial agreements should carry decisive weight in divorces. It was the first time such agreements were effectively made enforceable under UK law. For Robert Brown, this was catastrophic. His entire legal approach over the prior 3.5 years had been to tear down the prenup he had signed with Joanna. He had argued it was unfair and denied him funds he was owed. Now the UK's highest court had declared that prenups must be upheld. His case fractured. The final divorce hearing was set for the 8th of November 2010 at the High Court, just a week away. 1 week until Joanna would be legally free of Robert Brown, with her assets and home protected and her children secure. Joanna contacted her stepbrother and her friend Hetty. The Radmasher ruling, as she referred to it, felt like a line in the sand. She believed it meant everything was about to change. Freedom seemed tangible. The nightmare felt as if it might finally end. But Robert Brown had other plans made over months, plans that involved a grave, a hammer, and a plastic storage box. Sunday, the 31st of October 2010. Halloween. Children across Ascot were getting into their costumes and buzzing with anticipation. For Joanna Simpson, it was supposed to be an ordinary day. Robert had the children for a half-term visit and was due to bring them back that afternoon. Around 4 p.m., he arrived at Tun Cottage on Buckhurst Road in Ascot with Alex and Katie, aged 10 and 9. The children rushed inside to the playroom, eager to see their mom and share stories about their time with their father. Robert followed Joanna into the house, carrying one of the children's homework bags. Inside that bag, he had concealed a claw hammer taken from his bike shed. It was placed there carefully, and it was not the only sign of advanced preparation. Months earlier, he had dug a grave in Windsor Great Park. He had purchased a plastic storage box large enough to serve as a makeshift coffin. He had stockpiled bin liners, tape, and other items. Everything was ready. In the house, Joanna and Robert began to argue. The exact words exchanged would never be fully known. Later, he would claim the subject was medication, a threadbare excuse the judge dismissed outright. In the playroom, just 2 doors away from the bedroom where the argument was unfolding, the children were within earshot, playing and unaware that a rupture was moments away. Then Robert struck. He hit Joanna with the claw hammer again and again, 14 blows in total, delivered with brutal force. Joanna raised her arms and hands to defend herself. Wounds there showed the desperate effort to shield her head. She was no match for a man 6'5" and tall, stronger, and wielding a weapon. As her life ebbed, her 9-year-old daughter, Katie, heard the sounds from the playroom. She did not know what they were, only that something was wrong. When Robert emerged from the bedroom, Katie asked him if he was going to call an ambulance. He did not. The judge would later make it clear, Robert Brown never intended to call for help. He wrapped Joanna's body in plastic sheeting and put her in the boot of his car. Katie saw him do it. He told the children their mother was unwell and had to go to hospital. They accepted what he said. They were children and had no reason to believe otherwise. About 20 minutes after the killing, around 4:20 p.m., Robert returned to his home in North Street, Winkfield, with Alex and Katie. Joanna's body remained in the boot. The children went inside, confused and worried, but compliant under their father's guidance. He then drove to Windsor Great Park. He knew exactly where to go. At the grave he had dug months before, he buried Joanna in the plastic box and covered her with earth. He hid a spade that he had used nearby. He disposed of the CCTV unit from Joanna's house and the hammer, burying those items separately in the park. That evening, he dropped Alex and Katie off with his girlfriend Stephanie for the night. He did not tell her what he had done, but she sensed something was off. He seemed distracted, not himself. Concerned, she contacted Robert's parents in Scotland. His brother, Kenneth, reached out to him as well. Robert said nothing. Halloween night continued. Doorbells rang, sweets were collected, laughter echoed, and the absence of Joanna went unnoticed beyond those who tried to reach her and could not. Around 5 in the morning on Monday, the 1st of November, Robert returned home from burying the body and was next seen by Stephanie. He was calm, collected, as though this was just another day. But Stephanie's worries had not faded. She had already contacted his family, and they were alarmed. At 7:54 a.m., Kenneth contacted the police. He told them he was worried about Joanna, that something was wrong, and that Robert's behavior was unusual. At 8:38 a.m., Robert called the police himself. In a move designed to look cooperative, he reported a domestic incident involving Joanna and asked to make an appointment. When asked whether everyone was okay, he replied that one person was not. When asked whether that person needed medical attention, his response veered, yes, then no. He sounded calm and measured, offering careful fragments that invited concern but not clarity. Officers were dispatched to Tawn Cottage immediately. At 9 a.m., they arrived and knocked on the door. No answer. They called out into the silence, then forced entry. What they found inside was grim. There were spots of blood throughout the property. Blood in the bedroom, on the walls, on the ceiling, in the kitchen. The scene would later be described by forensic officers as among the most brutal they had encountered. Joanna was not there. Her phone, purse, and car were present, but she herself had disappeared. At 10:11 a.m., Robert attended Maidenhead Police Station voluntarily. The moment he arrived, he was arrested on suspicion of murder. Officers believed there was a chance he might reveal what had happened and where Joanna was because he had contacted them and walked into the station. Perhaps he would cooperate. Perhaps he would express some remorse. He did not. He was interviewed approximately 9 times over the following days. Again and again, he answered no comment. He refused to assist in the missing person investigation. When he did speak, he tried to cast himself as a victim in a rancorous divorce. He cited the prenuptial agreement repeatedly, painting Joanna as wealthy, controlling, and vindictive. Investigators saw through that stance quickly. The prenup was not a defense, it was a potential motive. Days passed. Large-scale searches began across the area. Police units, K-9 teams, helicopters, and volunteers fanned out. The community stepped forward to help. There was still no sign of Joanna. Her family was distraught. Diana Parks was frantic. She wanted to know where her daughter was, whether she was alive, what Robert had done. He stayed silent. On the 3rd of November, around 4 in the afternoon, something shifted. Police showed Robert photographs of the blood inside Joanna's home. The evidence spoke for itself. After consulting with his solicitor, Robert made a statement. It was 1 page. He said he had lost control. He said they had argued and that he had pushed her. He admitted placing her in the boot of his car, saying he intended to take her to hospital. He confirmed he had taken the children to his home address in Winkfield. And finally, he told officers that he had concealed and disposed of Joanna's body in Windsor Great Park. On Thursday, the 4th of November, police went back to the park to locate the exact burial site. Robert was brought to the area. He immediately identified where he had buried his wife. There was no hesitation. The next day, Friday, the 5th of November, forensic teams began the methodical recovery of Joanna's remains. The grave was shallow and lay about 40 feet from Sand Hill Road in a drainage culvert area. Joanna had been there for 5 days. Robert Brown was formally charged with murder. A post-mortem would confirm what people had dreaded. The cause of death was blunt force trauma and strangulation. On the 11th of May 2011, the trial began at Reading Crown Court. Joanna's family and friends filled the public gallery, braced for justice. More than 20 people had come forward to speak for Joanna. They could not believe there was any possibility he would escape a murder conviction. Robert Brown pleaded not guilty to murder. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. His defense was that he suffered from an adjustment disorder at the time he killed Joanna, a mild condition that seldom leads to violence. The judge would later observe that the condition faded shortly after Joanna's death. Robert took the stand. He described Joanna as a scheming, rich brat and said he had been driven to kill her by years of recriminations. He admitted hiding the hammer in his daughter's homework bag, but gave no reason for doing so. When questioned about the attack itself, he said he could not remember what happened. The prosecution offered a starkly different picture: premeditation from months in advance, a grave dug before the killing, a hammer hidden in a child's bag, a plastic coffin ready and waiting, 14 blows delivered with intent to kill, no ambulance call, even when asked by his daughter, extensive steps taken to conceal the crime. One critical piece of evidence was never shown to the jury: Katie's statement to police. In it, she said they got into a fight, that her dad put her mom in the car and said he had hurt her, that he told them he was taking their mom to the hospital. She had heard the bang. She had seen her father put her mother in the car. Diana would later say that if that statement had been seen in court, the verdict may well have been different. On the 24th of May, 2011, after nearly 15 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its decision: not guilty of murder. Guilty of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. The judge imposed a sentence of 26 years imprisonment. Under UK law, there would be eligibility for automatic release after serving half, 13 years. November 2023. There were tears and gasps of astonishment. Outside, on the court steps, Diana Parks spoke to the press. There had been, she said, a gross miscarriage of justice. Robert Brown had got away with murder in name only. In 2014, determined to make meaning from the devastation, Diana Parks and Hetty Borth Nanton co-founded the Joanna Simpson Foundation. 2 years later, in 2016, Diana met Queen Camilla at a Safe Lives event and shared Joanna's story. The Queen listened and cried. She told Diana, "I'm going to do something." That meeting etched itself into her heart and became a turning point for her focus on domestic abuse. As 2023 approached, automatic release loomed for Robert Brown. The campaign to stop it began in earnest. Diana, Hetty, politicians, and Queen Camilla all pressed forward. Alex and Katie made statements. Katie's words, written at the age of 9, were devastating in their simplicity. "My father killed my mommy, and I'm scared. He is the most evilest man I have ever known." On the 10th of October 2023, Justice Secretary Alex Chalk blocked Brown's release. In February 2024, Brown's High Court challenge was dismissed. As of October 2025, he remained in prison pending a parole board decision. In December 2024, the UK government announced new sentencing reforms, explicitly crediting the work of the Joanna Simpson Foundation. The foundation continues to offer specialized support for children impacted by domestic abuse, pushing for systemic change so that other families will not have to walk the same path. Joanna's legacy lives through that ongoing work and through a shift in awareness that has prompted different choices at the highest levels. Joanna Simpson was 46, a woman defined by kindness, by devotion to her children, and by a steady commitment to giving them a life filled with love. In a single afternoon, that life was taken from her. What followed, however, was a testament to persistence and to the power of speaking out. Her mother refusing to be quiet, a queen moved to tears, and a country beginning to confront domestic violence more directly. Remembering Joanna should not be grounded solely in the cruelty of her end, but in the light she embodied and the momentum for change that her life and her story sparked. If you found this story meaningful and want more narratives like this, please like this source and subscribe for future uploads.